Okay, Mr. Chair, the waiting room is empty. Meeting is being recorded. 4 members are present. We have activated in the settings, the closed caption feature. It was activated in the settings, so hopefully it's functioning. Mr. Chair, you're clear to proceed.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order at 6:04 on December 13th, and I'm going to turn it over to Selectman Murphy before we open up for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, on behalf of the town, just say a few words about the tragedy that has rocked the town. We learned early Sunday morning that one of our own, Luke Simpson, tragically died in a car accident with 4 other cadets at Maine Maritime Academy, and sadly perished. And our heartfelt condolences go out to his mother and father. When a tragedy like this hits Rockport, because everyone knows one another, it runs deep. And Luke graduated with one of my kids, Colleen, with the class of 2020. And he, by all stretches of the imagination, he was a wonderful kid. Loved to fish. Was a hockey player. Just a warm-hearted individual. And tragedy it struck too soon. To leave this earth at 22 is so unfair. So I was wondering if we could do a moment of silence in the memory of Luke Simpson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, we'll open it up for public comment.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, just one note before we do that. A note on the agenda. Housing Authority vacancy will not take place this evening. I've alerted the board and I've alerted the candidates. A matter was brought to our attention this afternoon relating to that. So the Housing Authority item will not take place this evening. That will be rescheduled. Planning Board will proceed as scheduled. No Housing Authority this evening.
Alrighty.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video.
Seeing Toby.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. At an earlier meeting, I spoke in public comment about Long Beach. Yesterday, I received in the mail a letter. I'll read you 2 paragraphs from it. Mr. Arsenian, you are often spot on, but during the public comment at the Selectmen meeting on November 29th, you made a gross error. You gave the Selectmen beautiful praises about the Long Beach land leases being near full rental value. This is not true. Accepted market value rental payments are about 5% of the assessed land value. S. Wilkinson and P. Murphy and 3 former board members decided upon 3.25%, even though a judge ruling on a Canomo Point case previously decided that 4.5 to 5% is fair, leaving open that possibility that even more than 5% is acceptable. P. Murphy is so nervous about this blunder that he often attempts to spin it publicly. It seems you bought into his spin. It goes on from there. I don't vouch for those facts, but I'm asking you, the board, to either confirm those facts as figures as facts or to refute them. From that,
Toby, are you able to tell us who wrote that?
not at the moment.
Okay. It's just okay. You're not gonna.
You're interrupting me.
Yeah, you do plenty of that, so you're not gonna.
No, I don't. I don't have the opportunity to. When I praised the board for the current return on the leases, I spoke rashly. I withdraw those statements. I got it wrong. Eat humble pie. And I apologize, not to the board, but to anyone who was listening. It seems to me that you complain on a regular basis about the information that citizens get from social media, from Facebook, from Rockport stuff. you say that these are sources of misinformation. And yet, if you complain, you have no one to blame but yourselves. It's up to you to get what is in fact information out to the public. And at this point, there's so much distrust, understandably, that with any facts you produce, you'll need to produce the sources as well. About a month ago, you devoted an entire meeting to listening to citizens' remarks about Long Beach. If that was in good faith, which I tend to doubt, that was a fine thing to do. And by good faith, I mean actually listening to what people are having to say, as opposed to just giving them a chance to vent and a publicity venture. But if it's worthwhile to spend a whole meeting on listening to citizens' comments, it would certainly be worthwhile to spend a whole meeting on getting out the facts. When it came to the report of the Long Beach Options Committee, your board entirely disdained the report, did not comment on it, failed to thank either the chair or the people who served on the committee. You disowned it entirely. So I believe it's now up to you to get your version of the facts on Long Beach out to the public. I would suggest that you start with the things that this letter refers to, that is the calculations that went into the charges on the current lease, and also the matter of the clause that held the town blameless for any damages to the cottages through failure of the seawall. That was a part of the previous lease and came out of the present one. And that's a disastrous thing for the town. And we ought to have an explanation from town council as to why that took place. Onward from there, we need some sort of an explanation, a thorough one, of the Long Beach settlement, the cases that the tenants brought against the town, which you said, Sarah Wilkinson, to a town meeting and much applause, were totally without merit. And 2 years later and several $100,000 later, you settled on terms that I would say are disastrous for the town. I do not retract the statement about the 4% cap on the rents being a dreadful mistake. It most certainly is. You shot us in the foot, and you shot us in the foot all over again with the agreement to sell, to give the tenants priority on purchasing the property in the event that the town sells it. So at the time I asked for a proper explanation of that. You sent one page to the Gloucester Daily Times and felt that was good enough. I asked for a proper explanation, none was forthcoming. So onward from there, I would suggest you hold some such meeting in January. Will you do that?
Can't promise you January, so I'm not positive, so, but we're gonna move on. You've had long enough right now.
Mr. Chair, Jim Creamer,
all
your
right.
name and address for the record.
Yes, Jim Creamer, 69 South Street. I listened to Mr. Arsenian there. I'm not speaking directly to that issue. I'm ignorant of most of the terms of that. But I do think an improvement could be made on the town website in terms of reports or more information about your the decisions of the selectmen. It's a little bit difficult even to find the meeting link tonight, but I did, so I'm here. But not to bring up criticisms the first time I'm on one of these. I do think that you do a hell of a job with the resources you have, and I know that what Toby is asking for is a job. It's a hard job. I mean, you could hire more people to do it, or try to figure out some simple way to do it. But I do appreciate your work. I also, and you may have heard me at town meetings speak about affordable housing issues, and I've had a lot of experience in affordable housing, working in that area for most of my life. But I think there are problems here in Rockport, and I think I've seen some of the housing that the town has created, and I think it looks pretty damn good. And I wish we could make more and come to some kind of reasonable accommodation to the situation around the transportation hub and all that. that's a difficult situation. I mean, it's, there's not much of a carrot on a stick, and there's not much the town really has to do, and or can't do much unless you have a willing seller. So, and one of my concerns, and I've seen it, I've been driving by the tool companies for let's see, how old's my daughter now? 43, when she was born here in Gloucester. Driving by that tool company since 1975, and now it's been empty for I don't know how long, and nothing's happened to it. And I I think the town should take it, but that's an expensive proposition. But I think with that ideal location, you could make affordable units in the back street side and incredible expensive condominiums on the other side to counterbalance the weight of the low income units. They don't have to be big. They could be small. They could be studios. But we need to have people that live in studios in this town to work here. Otherwise, you won't get a restaurants that you might like. And the train being such a burdensome means of transportation also affects that. But that's another story. Anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. All right, seeing no more, so we'll move on to the tax classification hearing, and let me just read the public notice.
Stephanie Wolf is raising her hand. I don't think she knows how to use the raise hand.
Okay,
signal.
we'll take her comment real quick.
Hey, Stephanie, name and address for the record, please.
Stephanie Wolf, 6 Point to Shen, Chair Beautification Committee, Town of Rockport. I have been on a fact-finding mission to figure out facts about the community house. And I have in my hands the application by the Town of Rockport dated January 17th, 2009 for CPC funds, which they were granted. And that application states in part, there will be 2 function rooms and a kitchen for all town organizations to use. The proposed senior center would occupy half the building. By renovating the entire building, all groups can be accommodated. I assume the selectmen have a copy of this, but I'm happy to supply that if you need it. I will continue my fact finding and will get together with relevant town officials soon, hopefully. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just for a comment on the community house, we will be having a meeting January 10th where we'll be discussing it at length. It will be on the agenda as an action item, I believe. So just so everyone else is aware. And Barbara, Mitch, can I unmute her?
Introduce myself. I'm Barbara Kaplan. I live at 4 Ocean Avenue for 35 years. Realize that's not a native, but I'm very vested in the community. I'm part of an organization called ECHO, the Essex County Community Organization. We're working on researching all across the North Shore housing development in communities. Especially we're interested in affordable housing for multi-generation, workforce, and others. And at the November 29th meeting, it was stated that we would gain information about the ARPA funds. We know Rockport has over 2 million in ARPA funds. And I'm just have a question, will that be addressed this meeting? Because we have a large resource of community members who are very interested in making housing available to people who would not otherwise be able to afford this community. Big concern. So will ARPA funds be discussed at this meeting?
No.
Just
Again, we'll be talking again, New Year and January 10th, maybe in the second meeting, maybe we'll have another update as I think it might have been the 29th meeting as well, that we announced that we will have a web page on the town website that is, it's still getting filled out. Mitch, what's the status on it? Like 95%?
I'm working on that in between other stuff where we're
Yep.
pretty much there to have something out, hopefully right before Christmas, but it's
Alrighty,
shuffling in with everything else right now.
thank you. Selectman Donnelly, you want to say something?
no, I was just going to say what you just said, Ross.
Alrighty. All right, now on to tax classification hearing, and I believe Liz Dukes is here, Tim Good as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Liz Dukes is here and unmuted, and Tim Good is here and unmuted.
How you
Hi,
doing, guys?
everyone. Yep.
Good evening.
Hi. Nice to see everybody. Welcome to the fiscal year 23 classification hearing. The purpose of the classification hearing is for the selectmen to decide whether or not they would like to create different tax rates.
Sorry,
Historically,
Liz, just gonna jump in. We just need to vote to open the hearing first.
So
sorry.
I didn't read the public notice either. I was cut off. So posted on December 5th, 2022 at 7:05 PM. Public notice, Town of Rockport classification hearing, Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 6:05 PM via Zoom. Please visit the Town Rockport website under posted meetings for Zoom link and meeting ID information. Discussion will be decided on whether or not to create a different tax rate. And then I'll take a motion to open it.
Yes, I move that the board open the tax classification hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Public hearing is open, and I'll turn it back over to Liz and Tim.
Sorry about that, just jumped the gun, but just to reiterate, the classification hearing is for the selectmen to decide whether they would like to vote on creating different tax rates. Historically here in Rockport, we have always gone with a single tax rate. Again, this year, the commercial industrial class only makes up 5.022%, to be exact. So the Board of Assessors would recommend that we follow suit and stick with the single tax rate.
All righty. Anything from you, Tim?
No, I think that pretty
All
much
right,
says it
I'll
all. If
turn
anybody
it
has
over to
any
the board if
questions,
they have any
fine. but-
questions. Anyone from the board? Selectwoman
No.
Donnelly?
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And I think the burden on the commercial sector would be enormous if we were to make that shift. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I concur with Denise. I fully think that burden would be quite large. So I think we keep it the same.
All right, and then Selectman Loya?
I would comment the same. It is a situation that cannot be changed, really.
All
So
right, and I'll open it up to the public if any.
If anybody wishes to speak regarding the tax classification, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Mr. Chairman, Toby Arsenian, name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Every time, without much discussion, you decide to have a uniform tax rate, commercial and residential. And we've heard all of the rationale behind it umpteen times before. I think that your board unduly favors commercial interests in the town on a regular basis, but I think that this is reasonable and fair, that it should be one rate across the board. We wouldn't profit greatly, as has been explained, and the commercial interest would be sunk. I have another interest on tax rates that isn't directly relevant to this, but is tax rates. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Some of the property, notably some coastal lots and I believe most of the wood lots, are rated unbuildable. And those, I believe, are taxed at something like 1/10 the assessment of buildable lots or lots with houses on them. And that's wonderful for the people who own all these lots, and they're open space, and we're all grateful for that, or if we aren't, we ought to be. But there's nothing permanent about that. And having had the tax benefits of an unbuildable lot and paying a greatly reduced tax rate on it for umpteen years, you can go to the Board of Appeals and with their blessing, hey presto, there's a buildable lot. Or if you've got enough money and can drive in a road for a subdivision, ditto. And at that point, all the rest of us who've been paying the full tax rate on our houses or on buildable lots have subsidized your investment handsomely, and you get to cash in. I realize that that can't be changed short of the state, but you were going to meet with the state representatives, Tar and Ferranti, on a regular basis. That was one of Don Campbell's brilliant notions, my brilliant notion 20 years ago when Charlie Clark was chair. And so I would suggest to you that that would be one issue you might take up with them. It has another effect too. When the Open Space and Recreation Committee sent out letters to all the people who owned the woodlots, they got 0 responses. And that's predictable. Why would anyone bother to sell when for a few dollars a year you can hang on, and either out of sentiment or love for the woods or whatever, and at some point cash in royally? So would you consider putting that on an agenda when you next have the honorables come to call?
I will consider it.
Thank you.
All
Hey,
right.
Mr. Chair, Jim Creamer, name and address for the record. You're unmuted.
Jim Creamer, 69 South Street, Rockport. Just a question on the classification. Has it been considered, as a question for the selectmen, has it ever been considered? Well, first of all, I was gratified to see a graduated property tax issue come up at the town meeting, or the special meeting rather. I can't remember which, but anyway, it failed, and it seemed to, there was a lot of people there that voted against it, so they have something to say. But I'm wondering if the board has ever considered a classification of along the coastline, access to the ocean or the bay, immediate properties that are immediately adjunct to the ocean, to create a possible classification along those lines. So that was my question. If anyone would try to, or
As long as I've been on the board, it hasn't been. Mitch, have you ever heard anyone discuss it?
No,
Since you've been
Liz
here.
and Tim, I'm not sure if that's possible. I defer to the two of them on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's not possible. Massachusetts is an ad valorem tax state. You pay your taxes and your value is based on market value of the property. The properties that are closest to and on the water do pay more money typically because they are worth more. There's no need to put a separate category in, and there's no option to do it. We're required by the state to be as close to fair market value as we can get in the timeframes presented. And there's no provision for charging somebody extra for that, other than their values tend to be higher because people are willing to pay more money for them.
All right. Any more questions from the public?
If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video.
All right, seeing none. Turn it back over to the board one more time if they have any more questions. If not, I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
Okay, I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I
All
move
right.
that the board close the tax classification hearing.
I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Hi.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Where other hearings closed, and I'll take a motion to agree with the tax assessor.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board remain with the unified tax rate.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Hi.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Happy
you.
holidays.
You as well.
Happy holidays.
All right, next on the agenda is an update from the Cape Ann YMCA. I believe we have a couple of people here, Mitch.
You do, Mr. Chair. I see Arena McWilliam Lopez and Dave Tucker, both are unmuted.
All righty, how you doing, guys?
How's it going?
Hi,
Good to see you guys again.
thank you for having us here. We're actually in the same building, but in different rooms.
All righty.
So hopefully we don't talk over each other too much. So we are here to give an update, and I just wanted to just provide a context for those of you who haven't been part of this, just being acquainted with the partnership and the support from the town of Rockport for both the Rockport Teen Center and for youth development at the Cape Ann Y. So we've been longtime partners and very grateful for the longtime support. from the town of Rockport. So we're here to give an update. We've had some previous meetings with some of the selectmen here, and you haven't heard very much from us, but it's because we've had our heads down and really doing some due diligence and some research on focusing on what the best strategy forward is. So I'm going to actually share some slides just to help communicate better. I hope that's okay with everyone here.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. And how is that, everyone? Can you see
Good.
that?
Yep.
Okay, so we thought we'd just start with, again, just providing some context of the impact for the folks here who aren't familiar with the background and the context. So last year, our CEO was the interim executive director of the Cape Ann Y. I am the new executive director of the Cape Ann Y, Arina McWilliam Lopez. I've been with this local Y since July. And so that was right before that happened, I think it was last fall, about a year ago, our CEO connected with you all, and we were really trying to troubleshoot. We are still very much in that coming back together period after 2 years of quarantine. Our teen center in Rockport hadn't quite reopened yet, and we were really struggling with staff issues. And so we came to the decision that it made sense to use the funding from the town of Rockport to translate that into offering complimentary memberships for Rockport teens. And in the process of doing so, we then just had intermittent events at the Rockport Teen Center, because we have a mandate that if we're going to open that center, we want at least 2 trained staff there for safety. And otherwise, it's kind of a remote location, and getting a big group of teens together, we want to make sure that we have the appropriate people in place to support and facilitate a safe and productive event. So we've run several pop-up events, but we've really focused on bringing teens here. And so we've had about 100, we looked at our scans to identify that, and we've had about 150 Rockport teens overall. We have an average of 20 coming in. And we felt like there needed to be more awareness building in the local schools. So we've been focusing on doing that just alongside building more opportunities for programming here. So what we wanted to do today, goals for today, is share with you what we think would be the road ahead, get some feedback. So we're gonna scope out, what we think are the best steps moving forward for collaboration. At the end, I'll take the slides off, because it's kind of hard to get dialogue when there's the slides in front of us. And so I wanted to just pause here and give you a sense of how we've put together this plan. And David, I think this is a good moment for you to jump in, because what we've done is we've kind of paused, pulled back from the concept of the space itself, the Rockport Teen Center, and thought, what is the content of what we want to do for youth development? And so this is where we've come up with what we really want to do is create an actual structure and it doesn't matter what space it is in the end, there's an actual structure to what we're doing. And so we really wanted to build out this next gen community leaders program. So David, why don't you give a little bit of background on, what you've done so far in doing some outreach for that program. And then we're going to give you an overall quick concept of what that program looks like and a proposed timeline. So probably about 5-10 more minutes of just us sharing the concept that we'd love to get your feedback on.
Yeah, so I'll take it away here. Hi, I'm David Tucker. I'm the teen director at the Cape Ann Y. The beginning of this school year, I met with the National Director of Youth and Government for the YUSA, kind of getting a grasp on different types of groups and leadership skills, as well as anything to help grow our teens. And we came up with some great ideas, and basically it helped form the next design we want to do with the Next Gen Community Leaders Program. So basically it would be growing our teens, making them get their leadership skills, as well as many other opportunities to growth for them. And we'd have outreach.
Sorry, David, I can share. These are the core pillars.
Yes. So mental health and first aid. So we work with the kids to train them on their social and emotional activities, civil engagement, volunteering, and community impact opportunities, like the farmers market, workforce development, access to first jobs and mentorship opportunities, recreation, competitive and fun games, continued access to the Glenn T. McLeod Center. And we would also be asking the help and connecting with guidance counselors, principals, and anybody else at the Rockport High School or middle school to get selected candidates that would be great for the opportunity, that would want to be there and want to learn. And the goals for today. The goals for today would be to share the plan, get feedback, communicate on the timeline, and targeted approach.
Thank you. So just to clarify, it looks like, there's a lot of different stuff here. So just to clarify what this would actually, because I think, it seems like, how are you going to do all that? So these are the four main streams of what we'd be looking at in terms of building out experiences in the form of workshops and events with teens. Apologies for some misspellings I just caught here, but guidance counselors, the reason we are talking about, reaching out to principals and guidance counselors is because we really feel, we have no problem getting teens into the building to use workout equipment and to use our facility and to play hoops. We have all kinds of things that teens can just gravitate towards with the facility itself. The Rockport Teen Center has games and things to hang out, couches to hang out in. But what we don't have right now is a structured curriculum, right? That has a monthly meetup that's really focused on articulating, what does leadership look like for a young person? And so it's going to take a certain type of teen to be ready to really form that kind of a group. Not every teen is going to be ready for that. So that's why we wanted to take a targeted approach to starting a first cohort of teens that are actually our role, my role, David's role, and the other staff that we have. Our role is to really facilitate a monthly, coming out of the teen center, a monthly pop-up that basically has a guest speaker, but we want to really support the teens themselves to come up with the event logistics, to do the outreach, to get peers in the room. And so we really need to work with teens building this out that are really ready for that. They're really ambitious about doing something like that. So we wanted to get recommendations through guidance counselors. David has started to reach out to some of those folks. And actually we have a connection with a Rockport High School history teacher who's also a staff member at the Y for our summer literacy program. So our basic timeline is, January, forming an advisory council consisting of town officials, guidance counselor, educator, business representative, and a parent, just kind of thinking of like what that stakeholder group could look like. Folks are really busy, so it would probably be, probably not more than like a once monthly virtual call to figure out what's a strategy that it's appropriate and realistic. February, we'd recruit a youth advisory council, and have a targeted approach, as I mentioned, with the nominations and application screen. And then March, April, we'd launch and nominate the next generation of what we're just calling it the next gen community leaders cohort. And then we'd have a day of caring volunteering project that would be the launch project. So whether it's beautification of a public site, a beach cleanup, helping at Camp Spindrift, which is at our satellite location in Gloucester, or helping with the Rockport Farmers Market, those are just some ideas throwing out there. But we just, we feel like we want to do something like this anyway. And given the the close partnership and the longtime partnership with the town of Rockport, it seems like a great location and group to start with would be in partnership with you all, and then focusing on Rockport youth to build out this program. I think the road ahead we see is that this wouldn't necessarily be tied to place or town. It would be tied to what youth development really means and the resources that the Y has to contribute towards that. So I'll pause there. Hopefully that doesn't sound too overboard, realistic enough, and aligned with your thinking, and welcome any questions, if there was information that you felt was left out in this update.
Thank you. Selectwoman Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That sounds fantastic. It sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds great. I guess I have a couple comments and a question. One comment is that I would just, as you coordinate with the schools, make sure you're not overlapping with something that they already do. So I'm thinking of, this spring, I'm a senior now, so I got to take advantage of the seniors helping seniors this year. And they came to our house and did, some work that we couldn't do in the yard, which was fantastic. So that happens, I think, in May. So there is already that sort of thing in place. And the other area where I thought that might be helpful is to investigate with the schools, or actually in this case with the Board of Health, is the mental health overlap. I haven't been to a Board of Health meeting lately, and maybe somebody else could speak to this, but I know that there was a concern about focusing on teen mental health. So you just might want to check and see what's going on there. And I forgot what my question was.
All righty. Any other, Selectman Murphy?
Thank you very much, and thank you for that thoughtful presentation. I thought it was terrific. And anytime the YMCA and the public schools can work together, I think it benefits our kids. So we've had a great relationship with the YMCA dating back to the early 70s with programs and so forth. So I think this would be just another step in the right direction. So I look forward to watching this and being part of it at some point. So again, thank you for your presentation.
Selectman Loya?
Yes, I would also comment that your presentation on the part of both of you were very informative and certainly helped me. A couple of questions. Is the Rockwood space adequate for the future as you see it?
Oh, okay, I'm unmuted. This is a good idea. I haven't seen this before where you're able to control the mics. That's very helpful. Okay, so is the Rockport space, right now we are, yes, there's, in terms of any capital investments, there's not necessarily major capital investments that need to go in place. There is a lot of old furniture, so I think that it definitely needs a little bit of a polishing up. I would say it's mainly the aesthetic of the place, and that's subjective, but I think aesthetic and design communicates something, right? So I think that it does need a day of caring for the space itself. It needs to be repainted. It needs to be just, polished and cleaned up a little bit. I have a teenager myself, so coming into her room, it kind of feels, no offense, David, it feels a little bit like a teen room. But in terms of structure, we are continuing to invest in, it's insured, it's got fuel. We have our facilities folks checking on it on a regular basis. They were just there today. I think our main concern and barrier in terms of opening it up on a regular basis and the way it used to be open is really staffing.
Okay. How, for a review, to me or for me only maybe, how many days a week is it open? How many hours a day is it open?
I can answer this one.
Yeah,
So
go ahead, David.
generally in the past, it was open 5 days a week. So Monday through Friday with the optional Friday or optional Saturday every now and then. So it'd be 2 to 6. And then I believe during the summer it would close. So school year, Monday through Friday, 2 to 6, and then Saturdays would be occasionally.
Just to clarify for Selectman Lilly, it's not open right now, though.
Yes, not open right now.
Not open right now. Okay,
It
so
hasn't been
all
since
like
COVID.
all Y activities that students from Rockport High participate in take place in Gloucester.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We have the pop-up events that happen once or twice a month. That's the only thing that's facilitated there currently. Other than that, we have all the teens here at GTM and hanging out with them here.
Okay, so should we revitalize the place before it opens with any periodicity that you might have? In other words, if you have the staffing to open it on a periodic basis in the future, should it be updated before that point in time?
I think in terms of just some basic aesthetic things, I think that would really help, especially when it comes to this real change and re-envisioning of what it is. I know that in the past there have been volunteerism coming out of that space. There has been leadership programming coming out of that space, but I think we're just in a weird interim period where those pop-up events haven't necessarily brought that out. So again, I think sometimes aesthetically and visually, you have to adjust things to communicate the change.
Could you submit the list of those things that in fact might revitalize the place? In other words, could you submit that to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I might suggest maybe asking the Rockport members if they have any furniture they don't need.
Yes.
Obviously, you can go through. I mean, I think that's a good route you should take. And with the program that you're trying to create right now, I think, painting should be on their list for the students to do, if that's an option you guys can look at. But so how does this program in any way play a role in the teen center, or is it kind of completely separate for now?
I think it's, well, that's a good question. David is teen director and David has 2 supporting staff. Supporting staff are mainly, they're trained as coaches and gym monitors, and then just the mental health first aid. That's something all of our staff is getting trained in anyway. In terms of whether it's separate, I would see it as something we would like to do anyway. We would like to invest our teen director, our teen staff to focus on this type of an angle with supporting teens. So I think the Rockport space is key and it could be a hub for it, but it wouldn't necessarily determine whether or not we're going to run forward with this type of a program.
All right, and how is the focus? Do you guys still have a focus on the teen center, or is it kind of taking a back seat for now with this program in place?
It has taken a back seat mainly as a result of just needing to get our bearings with the staff and staffing costs, and we've had such an influx of need here. But I think in terms of like the space itself, over the last year, that's why it's taken a back seat. And also just coming with the new agreement of having Rockport teens have a complimentary membership to come here. We also wanted to kind of gauge how many teens are going to come to the main facility here and doing those pop-up events. And I don't know if it's a fair indicator. I think that was also an indicator, is where are teens at? What are they interested in? Are they coming to this pop-up event? Are they coming to the facility? I think what was pointed out too is we need to also better understand, almost assess what are the duplications, what's already happening, and what are we not understanding about what are the indicators that teens really want. Hopefully that's a helpful clarification.
And with the complimentary membership, what age does that go down to?
David, it starts at 14, right?
Actually, what we have been doing is at the Y, we have teens that are coming in that do go to Rockport Elementary School that are 5th grade. So we've been letting them in and come and enjoy our facilities. Mainly when the 5th graders are coming in, they're coming in with their siblings. So we honor that. So it's 5th grade through 12th grade. That's kind of what we've been running with, because those 5th graders are going to be 6th graders next year. I want them to know that this is a possibility and at their use.
And for that, has there been an official announcement? Because everyone I talked to had no idea that this was in place, that their kids were allowed to go to the Y. The circles I'm in, so to speak, the parents I don't.
Yeah, that's actually something I've been wondering too, because we had some teens come in from Rockport and didn't know. So I think we realized there was obviously a communication gap. So David, can you speak to that a little bit in terms of what was done to make sure that there was access to the information?
Yeah, so something we should definitely do is go ahead and write down the rules and guidelines, because what we offered you guys last year was 2 to 6, Monday through Friday. Rockport teens could come in, show their school ID and get in. We've kind of been a little more let loose with the teens as our hours have changed for teens, that they can stay till 8 o'clock now, because we have the staff to stay till 8 o'clock. That way they can be here, be safe, wait till their parents actually can pick them up and get out of work. So we have been letting those teens come in, and we have been telling them to tell their friends, kind of get the word of mouth out there, with about 20 teens a week. It was a little slower than I'd like it to be. Other than that, every teen event we have, normally those kids that are coming to our teen events out in Rockport don't use the membership at the GTM. So we kind of still tell them, let their friends know, leave up. I had a huge piece of paper on the teen center door for any teens that would walk by, because kids still hang out at the skate park. I have flyers. I believe I put a flyer down at Ace. I know teens don't go there, but it's the only board other than Walgreens that I thought we could pin one up on. So, I mean, talking to you guys now, it'd be amazing if you could let the teens the teachers and get that word out there. Because
how about social media or newspaper for I mean, a big thing would for parents to know too, so they can inform their student or their child.
That'd be amazing. We've had our head so down into this and getting next gens and getting this leadership opportunity up and running, that's a step we're going to have to take. That'd be amazing.
All right. So, and then one final question, just, what else, what can we do for you guys? Where can we help? How can Rockport help, facilitate this a little better? Besides what you already said in your presentation.
I mean, we'd love to have you as mentors. You want to come down sometime, Ross?
Yeah, I think what would be great is just to have a small advisory group that, I think that there was this seniors helping seniors mental health that's already happening through the Department of Public Health. We know that in Gloucester, that's the case as well. And we're really working closely with the City of Gloucester Public Health Department, because there are a lot of changes in the overall Massachusetts overhaul of public health or mental health services. So we're getting our information, it seems like, much faster through that channel. So all that to say, we need a sounding board to better understand what's already happening, and either can we contribute to that with a delineated role being the why, or perhaps we should just not go in that direction because it's already well resourced and it's already happening. I think the last thing we would want to do is duplicate a good effort that's already taking place. And I know that nonprofits tend to have a reputation for doing that. So that's certainly not the direction we want to go. And we all have limited resources and time. So we need a sounding board, I think, is the short answer. And we need a small group of folks that would like to be that sounding board.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you
for
so
coming
much.
in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All righty, next on the agenda is the joint sessions. As a reminder, The Housing Authority will not be doing a joint session tonight for interview and appointment. It will just be the planning board. So with that, I'm gonna ask Jason Shaw to call his meeting to order if he can.
Sure, Mr. Chair, just one moment. I just want to make sure I find all the planning board members and unmute them. I see Jason, Tom Meekis, Harry Korsland. Harry, accept the unmute if you could. And Peter Kuttner. Okay. Mr. Chair, all are unmuted, and Chair Shaw, you're clear to call your meeting to order.
Okay, this is a special meeting of the Planning Board, December 13th, 2022, to discuss the possible appointment of a fifth member of the Planning Board. All current Planning Board members are present.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I believe Selectman Lilia wants to address this matter.
Yes, I would like to recuse myself from the process of selecting the fifth member of the planning board for reasons that will become obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Town Administrator Mitch, and he can go through the candidates for us.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you. So the boards received 4 interested applicants for this position: Robert Simmons, Jonathan Lilia, Thomas Flaherty, and David Costin. If we work through the order in which they were received this evening, so the recommendation would be we work through each of them, members of the select board and planning board, ask questions of each candidate as that comes up. And then once they've all been interviewed, that would be the time to have the both boards discuss who they believe would be the best candidate. And then the vote would be a joint vote via roll call, acting on a motion in a second that's put forward for a particular candidate. So
will the selectmen be making the motion, or does either?
I'll call the motion from the selectmen. If they don't want to make one, I'll move to Jason to call one for his
Okay.
board. All right.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, first one in was Robert Simmons. Robert, you're unmuted. If you could please explain to the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, give us a little information about yourself and why you feel you're the best candidate.
Sure, and thanks for the meeting here tonight. So I moved to Rockport about 3 years ago, and want to sort of get more involved with the community here in a meaningful way. So this opportunity came up, and I was really excited about it. I've been an architect for about 35 years in Boston and Cambridge and Ipswich and Milton, Salem as well, and now I'm finally settled down here in Rockport. My career has been mainly in higher education and housing work over the years. I've been involved in a lot of urban planning initiatives in Boston proper and Cambridge, working on the Port Point Channel development, as well as Landmark Center at the Fenway neighborhood in Boston, the Watertown Arsenal development, and a bunch of multi-parcel developments there, which involved a lot of housing, mixed use, retail, office space as well. My more direct experience with working in the planning realm was actually in Ipswich some years ago, working on the historic commission there. Ipswich, as some of you might know, has about 5 historic districts and national historic districts, and I was involved in I was working on the chair for a few years there to work with homeowners and business owners to renovate properties that were affected there. And I also worked pretty heavily with the town planner, Glenn Gibbs, there for a number of years as he was developing the Ipswich Great Estates bylaw, which was a really interesting program where we tried to develop 4 60+ acre estates in Ipswich, where we could, preserve the historic assets there, where we could conserve land in perpetuity with developers, and in exchange for them being able to develop more dense developments on those properties, but in a historically sensitive and conservancy sensitive way. So that ended up getting a lot of interest, and eventually over 10 plus years, we brought in developers for 3 of those 4 estates that actually came through, and we were able to preserve, on the Historic Commission side, we were able to preserve a lot of mansions and some beautiful country properties out there, as well as give 50% of the land over to conservation use in perpetuity, and sort of preserve the character of Ipswich while sort of increasing the tax base and bringing a lot of employment opportunities in. So New England Biolabs came in to the Don Bosco estate, and the Turner Hill development brought in a golf course and a lot of housing, affordable and market rate housing as well. And Appleton Farms ended up developing their composting and farming business there. So that was sort of my main experience in working purely in the planning and historic worlds there. So I'm excited to see if I can help Rockport out with its planning ventures and help it grow in a careful and thoughtful way. So I open it up for any questions about things.
Thank you. Mitch, I'll let you facilitate this too with both boards in place.
Sure. If anyone has any members of the Board of Selectmen or Planning Board have any questions, Selectwoman Donnelly.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just want to say that having served on the planning board, and I know what a hardworking group it is, and that the town would really benefit from. It sounds like the town would really benefit from the different areas of expertise that you have and experience. In addition to the architectural experience, really the planning and serving on a public committee and understanding kind of the role of the planning board. I think we could really benefit from that. Just a comment.
Okay, any other members of either board have any questions, comments? Tom Meekus and then Selectman Murphy.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been able to follow any of our recent discussions of the planning board, but one hot button thing has been stormwater regulation. Do you have any thoughts in that area?
Stormwater regulation. I haven't followed that very closely yet, but one of my fortes has sort of been working on in the building world with that, and how to control the stormwater on building sites and make it much more manageable for future development.
Thanks.
Okay, Selectman Murphy and then Harry.
Thank you, Mitch. Just wondering, is there anything, Robert, that you would like to, is there any project that's currently in front of the planning board that you would like to get involved in, and with your expertise? I was wondering if there's anything that you'd like to sink your teeth in.
Well, I'm very interested in the affordable housing efforts and the MBTA issues that are opportunities, I should say, that are present there, and hopefully, I've worked over the years with probably, I think I counted it up the other day, about 3,000 housing units I've developed over the years with various clients, all the way from Somerville Housing Authority, renovating their place there along 93. Probably a lot of you pass every day, to Jewish community housing for the elderly, and as well as luxury condo developments as well. So I'm anxious to see how that opportunity might help Rockport and change the situation in housing. I'm also very possibly morbidly curious about the tool and die property and the blacksmith shop, and how we can get some of those properties that have been lying waste into some active discussions again.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for your interest.
Thanks. Okay. Harry, then Peter.
Mr. Simmons, thanks for offering your time and your expertise. Just two questions. In terms of your career, could you tell us what percentage of your work, if you will, was public and what percentage was private?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'd say probably 30% was public. Some of my recent projects were for UMass Amherst Student Center and another major dining hall at UMass Amherst, as well as the University of Tennessee's dining hall and University of Georgia's dining halls, which in a way are public realm projects. So I've worked a lot with state institutions, and the rest were probably the vast majority were public institutions, higher ed institutions, and some nonprofit developers in the housing realm, like Jewish Community Housing for the Elderly and those kinds of folks.
So I imagine the scale of these projects then ranged broadly.
Right. It was anywhere from a 25 unit development for Jewish Community Housing for the Elderly to and I guess Somerville Housing was a 215 unit development up to some luxury condos I did recently in the Fenway neighborhood that were about 340 units with parking and retail and so forth. So they ranged quite a bit.
Thank you. My second question is what are your views on coastal resiliency?
Well, I think it's a problem that is really surfacing fast in a lot of communities, and I think we need to think long and hard at it. The last time I was at a king high tide on the T Wharf there and saw that the water was about 12 inches below the floor level of the harbor master's building. I realize that Rockport is really vulnerable in some ways, and it's been an occasional disruption so far, but I think we need to have a sort of an overarching plan for the most vulnerable roads, the most vulnerable properties, and because a lot of the stuff around the harbor is essential for our economic development, and it's key to a lot of the jobs around here as well.
Thank you.
Hey, Peter.
Okay, yeah, Harry, question number 2 is my questions.
Sorry, Peter. We didn't compare notes before the meeting.
But I know some of your work at Fort Point Channel, and I think there's some similarities there between the harbor and our harbor, and also some of the piers. So I think I'll answer the question for you. That carries a lot of weight here, I think.
Okay, any other questions from planning board or select board? Chair Brackett?
Thank you, Robert. So just a quick question. If you're not appointed tonight, do you plan to run for the election this following year?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from either board? Okay, thank you very much. Go to the next candidate, that is Jonathan Lilia. Jonathan, you're unmuted. Please give us your background and why you feel you're the best candidate for this position.
Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Chairman Brackett, Chairman Shaw, members of the planning board, members of the selectmen, thank you very much this evening for allowing me to talk with you. I feel like I'm a very good candidate for this position based upon my history. I come from a long line of Rockport residents and now the 4th generation to live here. I can see the challenges that are facing the town, and I also believe that with smart planning from the planning board, the town can move forward in a positive way and grow the way it needs to grow. As for my community involvement, again, I said 4th generation Rockport resident. I had a grandmother who taught some of you in school, possibly. My father served as a member of the planning board and also as chairman of the planning board before rising to the selectman's position. I've spent 14 years on the ambulance department, might have visited a few of you along the way. I have also served for 5 to 6 years on the religious education committee as part of the Congregational Church. So I have also kind of stepped into the family business of getting involved in the community. My experience comes from the legal side of things. I'm a 25-year lawyer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, been barred, spent time working as a law clerk for an appeals court judge. And that experience, plus watching and listening to my father during his time as a member of the planning board and also as a chairman, made me realize the absolute importance of members of the board being able to read, interpret, understand, and then apply both the state law and the local bylaws that apply to all of the building regulations that go on. I believe that attorneys like me are good with those situations and those questions because those are skills that we use on a daily basis. And as Mr. Shaw would certainly be able to attest, lawyers are given an opportunity when clients or issues come in through the door. If you aren't necessarily the strongest of individuals, you can say to that client, hey, I think you need to go find somebody else. That's option one. Option two is to work with somebody. Option three is to dig in and to find the answers and get involved with the issues. And my experience working with an appeals court judge is that not every judge knows every single issue that comes before him or her on the bench. So you do need to dig in. And that is the approach that I certainly would take as a member of the planning board. I also feel like stepping into the planning board role, I certainly have a good working relationship with Chairman Shaw, spent 4 years with him on the ambulance, have worked with him in training situations on the ambulance committee. And I believe that that's invaluable to stepping in and knowing some of the members and getting going. So for those reasons, I believe that I'm a good local, hardworking, community-oriented candidate to fill this position tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from Board of Selectmen and Planning Board. Selectman Murphy?
Thank you, Mitch. I'll just stay consistent with each candidate. The question, Jonathan, is there any particular project that's facing the planning board that you'd like to sink your teeth into and get involved in?
Yes, Selectman Murphy, there is. I think the issue of affordable housing in town is really a primary issue. I can tell you I have been in houses from Phillips Avenue all the way to the south end and up on top of Great Hill. I have seen it all. I have seen I have a vast view of how people live in town and the need for more affordable housing in town. I believe that because the planning board's power of being able to bring issues to the warrant in town, much like the selectmen can do, is an important tool that ought to be utilized in town and make the planning board really kind of the primary focus of that work in town. Obviously working with other citizen groups, working with other committees, but really should take the lead in this particular role and move that issue to the forefront. And that's where I would sink my teeth and place my, obviously working well with the other members, but that's where I would like to go as a member of the planning board.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome,
Okay.
sir.
Chairman Brackett?
I'll ask the same question. If you're not appointed tonight, do you plan to run for the election? For that
I'm going to
seat?
keep, sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to keep my options open. I'm certainly interested in the planning board as my primary focus, but I will not say that I am not also eyeing. There are 2 selectmen slots that are open, and that would certainly be a consideration for me come the springtime as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Harry?
Mr. Logia, thanks for throwing your hat in the ring and your devotion to public service. My questions will be a little bit more limited than the prior candidate, but your thoughts on coastal resiliency?
It's clearly an issue that's facing not only Rockport, but really across the United States. You look at any type of 10, 15, 20-year map and you see issues and challenges that lay before us. Obviously, you would have to, in the town, there are limited resources. We are not New York City with an unlimited budget. We are not Boston with an unlimited budget. We would have to focus on what is prime real estate to work on. As the other candidate said, and I can certainly attest to my long time here in town, being on the ambulance and being out in the forefront of storms and bad weather, I know where the low points are and what needs to be protected. Certainly, Dock Square, Bearskin Neck, you have shops, you have tourism, you have the motif, you've got the focus of Rockport right there. That's certainly, you have a pumping station downtown right next to the old high school. Those are things that need to be protected and maintained in the future years, starting there and then kind of working out. And we're going to have to prioritize what is important to us and move forward from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. Other members of either board, Tom?
Would you like to have some equal time to comment about stormwater regulation?
My comments on stormwater regulation I'm going to fall back also on my legal career. Whereas I may not be articulate on that particular issue at this moment, there's nothing to say that as an attorney I can't absorb voluminous amounts of information when and if I were placed on the board and work with you and the other members of the board to come up with a plan to move forward. It works in conjunction with everything else. If we're talking about protecting the town, obviously stormwater regulation fits in with that. And those two issues and the solutions to those issues must work together.
Okay. Questions from any of the members of either board right now? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Up next is Tom Flaherty. Tom, you're unmuted. Tell us a little about your background and why you feel you're the best candidate for the position.
Well, hello, everyone. And the short answer is, having heard two candidates, I don't think I'm the best candidate. But I will say that I'm willing to chip in. I saw the article in the Gloucester Times, and I thought, well, if the town needs somebody, I'm willing to do it. I do have a legal background, 45 years slogging at the bench, and I have a pretty good understanding of complex business matters. I'm not a real estate lawyer, not a zoning lawyer. My wife and I and our daughter, 14-year-old daughter, moved here full-time during COVID. We bought our house here in 2008 and have come here for every major holiday and all summer, every summer since. We love Rockport, and I left my full-time lawyer position at the end of 2020, and I'm working part-time with a friend's firm now, and I have the time to do this. So I saw the article. I thought I'd chip in if I could help. I've been really fascinated with some of the discussion and the comments of Mr. Lilia and Mr. Simmons. And I think you've got a wealth of candidates. If they are conflicted out somehow and you really need somebody else, well, here I am. In the meantime, I've actually might be better suited to be a liaison to the Y. I actually donated a substantial amount of musical equipment to the teen center when we first moved here. And I was kind of disappointed that it hasn't gotten to be used. So with a teenage daughter and a bunch of my gear sitting idle in the teen center, I think perhaps that's where my talents might be best used. But as I said, I have I'm willing to do what needs to be done. If that turns out to be serving on the planning board, I'd be happy to do it. I do have pretty strong interest in keeping Rockport the wonderful, incredibly beautiful place that it is. When I have visitors here, they're overwhelmed with the beauty and the integrity of the town. And I'm not of the view that nothing should change, but in terms of our natural environment and the core of the housing we have in this community, I feel very strongly that it's important to protect it. I also believe very deeply that we do need more affordable housing, and it benefits everyone to have a more diverse community. And you know, with housing prices going where they're going, that becomes increasingly difficult. So that having been said, I'll stop there, and may the better person win.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of either board? Selectman Murphy.
Thank you, and I'll continue to stay consistent. Tom, is there any particular project that you'd like to sink your teeth into if you're successful of being appointed to the planning board?
Well, actually, the stormwater issue does intrigue me because I'm really concerned about bacteria levels in the waters off the coast. And I can't say that I'm an expert in that on that point, but I am certainly concerned about it, and it would be something that I would sink my teeth into, as you say.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for putting your name forward.
Sure.
I'll go ahead. Sounds like you were just stepping up to the plate, but I'll ask you anyways. Do you plan on running in the election if you don't get appointed tonight?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Okay, questions from any of the other members of either board? Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
You're welcome.
Okay, and David Costin, I don't see you on the screen. If you're here, use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. David Costin, if you're here, use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Okay, I don't see him. Both boards should have the materials that Mr. Costin submitted.
Yep, we have.
So at this point, that is all of the individuals that have applied for this vacancy. At this point, is there any discussion between the boards? Any back and forth that either board would like to have before a motion is sought?
Well, go ahead, Denise.
No, go ahead, Paul.
You know, again, thank you for the candidates that stepped forward to be considered for an appointment. I thought the interviews were strong. The candidates' resumes were strong. Read through them pretty thoroughly. I'd like to hear from the planning board because this person is going to be directly working with them, of course. If they have any type of recommendation or their thoughts, and then obviously the Board of Selectmen as well.
Sure. Chair Shaw?
Yeah, I've first of all, I just want to say one thing. I am very happy that there is actually a good amount of interest among people who are, you know, qualified to be on the planning board. I mean, this is kind of something that is very heartening that people are interested in this position. And you know, it's really wonderful. Just a little bit of information. I think it was today or yesterday, the Attorney General, we got notice that they Attorney General's office has signed off on the transit-oriented village development, which is the multifamily zoning around the train station, despite some opposition from some residents in the town, and also signed off on the accessory dwelling unit provision in our bylaws. So those were important to us on the planning board, and I think they'll prove to be important to the town in terms of generating some affordable housing. You know, I have to say, we've got very qualified people. John Lilly, I know and have worked with, and you know, he's an intelligent guy. He's certainly good at keeping people healthy. So I'm sure he'd be good on the planning board. And Tom Flaherty is, he's got a nice sense of humor, which is much appreciated, especially about yourself. I have to say that Bob Simmons, in my view, and maybe some of the other members of the planning board, I think his qualifications are really extraordinary. You know, he's a person who has had so much involvement with planning and building and construction and dealing with boards himself on these issues. I have to say that he is the most qualified candidate, you know, that I've ever seen. You know, in terms of people expressing interest in being on the planning board, there are a lot of people who express interest and are more qualified than others. Is in my view is probably the most qualified. We have another member on our board, Peter Kuttner, who's also an architect, and I think Peter, now retired architect, I believe, but Peter has been able to translate his architectural skills and sense of planning and space and, you know, things that he did in his practice, has translated that very, very nicely to his role as a member of the planning board. And I am sure that, you know, that Bob Simmons would be able to do the same. So again, I think we have some very qualified candidates. I'm very heartened about that. But among them, I believe that Bob Simmons is really the strongest candidates. And if we want a strong planning board with lots of different viewpoints from different areas, people with experience, he would be the one that I would want to have on our board. But that's my view as a member of the planning board.
Okay, why don't we work our way down the planning board? That might be good at this point. Tom, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I concur with Jason. I think Bob Simmons would be our best resource going forward.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
I agree with Jason. I've only been on the planning board 2 years, and we've been wrapped up quite a bit in the regulations and in new updating the zoning and things like that. But at the same time, there's some long range planning that we're going to address in the near and far future. And so I think he'd be a great contributor to that.
Okay, Harry?
Whether or not we ever have an applicant for a TOD oriented project come to Rockport, it seems somebody with the expertise that Bob Simmons has would be an invaluable resource for considering such an application. I think I agree, he's best suited for the planning board.
Okay, members of the selectmen, any thoughts, feedback, any motion you'd wish to offer? Selectman Murphy?
I concur with the members of the planning board. I felt the same way regarding Bob Simmons. I think he would be a outstanding member of the planning board. And with that said, I would like to make the motion that we in conjunction with the board of, the planning board, appoint Bob Simmons to finish the end of the term.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I will call a joint roll call. Selectman Brackett,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Chair Shaw,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mikas,
Aye.
Member Cutner,
Aye.
Member Korsland.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. So, Mr. Simmons, you have been appointed to fill the term through up until the next town election. At that time, the position would become would go onto the ballot for a regular election.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Any comments? Look forward to diving in and working with you all.
Thank you,
Maybe
Bob.
Thursday.
Appreciate it, guys.
Okay, Thursday.
Day after tomorrow.
So,
hurry.
Right.
so, Mr. Simmons, if you'd please call the selectman's office tomorrow, we'll produce a green slip, an appointment slip for you, and you'll need to speak. You'll need to visit the town clerk's office to get sworn in.
Okay.
If I could just make a quick comment, Tom Flaherty just disappeared, but I wanted to thank him and Jonathan and Robert for coming forward. Really exciting to see so much interest, even from the candidate who wasn't able to make it tonight. Tom, you might want to think about the Conservation Commission. They're looking for members, and with your legal background, you might find that interesting. And Jonathan, thank you again. Really appreciate the interest.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Chair Shaw, if you want to do an adjournment for your board.
Okay, will do. Do I have a motion to adjourn the planning board?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
So, Tom, you made the motion. Who seconded? Did someone second it?
Peter.
Peter seconded. Okay, roll call vote. Harry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
and I'll vote in favor. It's 7:30. Planning board meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Jason,
Thank
if you're
you.
able to stay on for the next item, the town meeting warrant, if you have an extra minute or two.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty. Before we get to that item, we're gonna do the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes, if any, and consider approval of on-call electrical service contract. Do I have an emotion for the consent agenda?
Move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
I'll
And do I have
second
a
that.
Alrighty. Any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And now for the action item and the warrant, we're gonna turn it over to Mitch so we can
Okay,
touch on it real quick.
sure. I will pull up just a quick rundown, and then I will ask Jason if he could just give a little bit of background on what's coming before you. So the usual article stance list, we've developed that today. So there are 15 zoning articles that have been submitted or transmitted to the board by the planning board. In addition to that, we have the 3 standard articles that always come along: prior year bills, budget transfers, any borrowing rescissions that are at the front. Jason, could you just give the board a general summary? They have all of the materials in their packets. If you could just give a general summary for everyone on what the planning board is proposing.
Yeah, what this is about is kind of a redo of the one article that didn't pass at the May 2022 meeting of the planning board. This was Article B, and Article B was lots of different changes, most of them very minor and insignificant to the existing bylaw. There were some substantive changes. For example, we gave the building inspector some real civil enforcement authority, which I know he's really been interested in having, and keeps on asking about this and what's going on with it. We also change, got rid of a lot of the archaic language that was in the current zoning bylaw. Not too many people have heard of a boarding house in the town of Rockport recently, and things like that. We've also, one of the things we did since May of 2022 is Rockport has a water supply protection overlay district. Most people haven't even read it, and for good reason. It's 10 pages of, in large part, confusing language about what areas are required in town to protect the water supply, drinking water supply in the town. And there's some inconsistencies in the existing law. There are actually things in the existing law that are contrary to what's allowed by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. So that was revised with the assistance of the Department of Environmental Protection and their sign off. They actually said it complies with their requirements. It was also revised with a lot of help from Eric Hutchins, who was the planning board chairman when the first version of this was adopted. And Eric, I have to say, had the humility to recognize that the version that's on the books now, the one that he was behind, really did need to be reworked and revised. And he assisted in revising it in a big way. So that's probably the biggest change that we did. For most people, they're not going to be, I don't think most people are going to be very excited about that, but it was a lot of work. And then the other things were just definitions and changes in some of the language. And why do we have 15 articles, which sounds like a lot of different articles? We have 15 articles because we didn't want to make this rise and fall. We didn't want one article to be either a bust or a boon. In other words, if we have 15 articles and 13 of them get the 2/3 vote required, because these are all 2/3 majority articles. None of them are simple majority as the last meeting. If we get those, at least we've got 13. We may lose 2, but we've got 13. And so that's why we broke it up into 13 kind of logically constructed different articles. Most of them, I would imagine, will not take very much time for the voters at town meeting, because most of them are very kind of plain vanilla garden variety changes that'll be easy to explain, easy to digest in small pieces. And I think, frankly, that's one of the reasons why Article B did not pass in May, is it was too big. It was too confusing. People were confused between what was in the Article B at May 2nd and what was in the more controversial provisions in the Article C, which is the accessory dwelling units, and also the multifamily housing around the train station. They got a lot of play, but they kind of sucked the air out, so to speak, of Article B, which was the really straightforward provision. So hopefully with these changes, we can bring this back at a special town meeting and get these adopted. I hope that explains everything.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jason.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I would recommend to the board the placement of Articles A through R onto the warrant.
You want a motion?
Yes, please. Unless there's any discussion first before. Seeing none.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board open the January 18th, 2023 special town meeting warrant and place Articles A through R on the warrant, then close the warrant. Further, that the town administrator is directed to prepare a final version for the board's signature after the meeting. Said authorization includes the ability to reorder the articles if necessary.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All right, I just want to say, no, I'll wait till after the roll call vote. So roll call vote, Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. And is it not accustomed to have citizen petitions on special town meetings? Is
So
that?
this
Go
one is
ahead.
being called for a very specific reason.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I was just thinking, further down the road, we should give time, but I know it's a special
So
town meeting.
it's the
so
board's prerogative. When in the past, when you've added a very specific meeting,
You just go
opened it
for
and
it.
closed it for that matter. There are two
Alrighty.
standing meetings every year. It is, of course, the board's prerogative if you want to do something different.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any citizens petition in the pipeline, or is there any?
No,
That we
not
know
that
of?
I'm
Okay.
aware of. But for that reason is that special town meetings aren't planned ahead of time. So I thought maybe we, in the future, we could open it for a little lengthier time to maybe possibly get
Yeah,
some.
at this point, we're
Not at this point,
Yeah, you're just going into this meeting.
This is just for
We're pretty
down the road.
pretty crunched for this one right now.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's out of the way. So updates from the board and town administrator, and I'll let Mitch take it away from there as well.
Just I point out that we're having our annual town hall volunteers holiday party next Tuesday at 4 p.m. So hopefully people can make it. It's has everyone been notified, and town employees and so forth?
Yes, all notices went out to employees, to boards, committees, commissions, and chairs have been asked to share that around with all of their members. I've seen that go back and forth with a number of different groups. So 4 o'clock at the community house next Tuesday, certainly an event every year that folks look forward to. Good
Yeah.
reminder. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a few items to touch on before we get to general updates. Community house, between now and the January 10th meeting, Selectman Brackett, Selectman Wilkinson, and I will take a look at the current fees and sets of regulations to see if there are any proposed changes to move forward to the board for their consideration. It's been a number of years since either one of those matters has been looked closely at. So the three of us will take a look and see if there's anything to provide suggestions on to you at your next meeting. We also have done some staffing shifts internally in DPW to accommodate a facility management structure in place, which we'll detail in further at your January 10th meeting as well, when we discuss anything that may be proposed relating to regulations or fees. So at this time, it's still rentals are still being processed through this office, again, based on availability. ARPA update, we're in the process, as I said earlier in the meeting, of trying to get the webpage finalized. We've got a lot of good content on there so far. As it relates to Rockport, we have a few more additional items to add. I expect we'll do that certainly before the holiday. It is that's being kind of fit in between other matters right now. The two priority items right now are the special town meeting and the operating and capital budgets. Grants update, the conservation agent and I had a meeting last week, and we'll be meeting with DPW this week, looking to see if we have a suitable proposal for the MVP grant program and an expression of interest for that. The town has its previous MVP work from 2018, as well as the hazard mitigation plan, which has identified different areas. We're looking to see what may be feasible for an appropriate submission on some pre-vetted projects associated for that. So we'll take a look at that, and if we have an expression to put in, we'll certainly let the board know at that time. The fire department, we're pleased to announce, Chief Keating has informed me that they've received one of the fire safety equipment grants in the amount of $11,600 for safety equipment. So that's certainly excellent. Kudos to the members of the fire department who wrote that grant and were able to manage it. A number of towns in the region got it, and it's certainly always good to have our department get that as well.
Do I touch on the grant from, or not grant, but the gift? Have they ordered their drone yet?
I know it was accepted. They're aware that it's accepted. I believe they've proceeded. The office has issued purchase orders for them that they've sent along to the vendors. So I believe they have an order in process.
Awesome.
And operating budgets, capital budget is undergoing its normal review process. operating budgets are due from all departments into SoftWrite by the 22nd of this month. And then any memos that need to be put in to fill out that process are due by the 28th. So we will have our internal review process in good shape and ready to proceed forward. At that time, we are generally where we need to be. January is usually very heavy budget centric. And then you have towards the end of January, your required submittal to the Finance Committee pending the AG's ruling on extending that to February 15th. We're hopeful that they come out with that ruling prior to January 30th. There is, that covers the specific items, general updates. The GCAC and the town are holding a COVID clinic this Saturday. It'll be from 9 to 11 at the community house. Appointments are available online. Folks can sign up there. And I believe they have a limited number of walk-ins. Ruth, give me a head shake if I'm correct on that. Yeah, okay, they have a limited number of walk-ins for those who don't have an appointment. So that is Saturday again, 9 to 11 at the community house. They've had some good turnout. Each time they've done it, they're doing it roughly once a month as they've gone forward. And we continue to have some general vacancies. So we would encourage individuals to take a look at our job and volunteer opportunities page. We have a number of open positions in town, as well as position we did another push for today on social media. We are still seeking snowplow drivers. We're seeking both those individuals who have their own vehicles, and we're seeking individuals who we would hire as a seasonal employee and would operate town equipment, town vehicles. Individuals interested in that should contact DPW. The goal is always to get as many available individuals as possible so that we have kind of a second string to call in and relief group for our DPW team. So individuals they're interested in that, either if they own their own equipment or if they are interested in operating the town's vehicles, should contact DPW. And again, for some of the general vacancies, we'd encourage folks to take a look at our job and volunteer opportunities page on the town website.
Is that for local residents or for snowplower, or are we opening it up to
Anybody who
anyone?
meets the qualifications?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any updates from the board? Selectman Lilia?
I chose to walk around last Friday night, which was the evening when shops were encouraged to be open throughout the town. And they were open throughout the town. To get an assessment as to how effective that ploy had been to bringing people to the town for shopping. And I then also talked with 10 shopkeepers during the latter part of that session between 8 and 9 to get their feel as to how effective it had been. And they were all quite excited about it. They thought the foot traffic had been very good throughout the evening. The exceptions might be some of the art galleries that sold the more expensive paintings and those shops that were on either end, the end of Main Street towards Front Beach or the end of Bearskin Neck towards the Breakwater and my place. Those had less traffic, but by and large, everyone was excited. I asked whether or not they would like to see this happen again. They said yes, on a monthly basis, that would be a very good incentive to bring people to town. It was mentioned by one shopkeeper that it would be nice if it were linked with perhaps a Shayla and Lou event, so that there was yet a second reason for people to come to town. They could walk the streets and shop prior to attending a Shayla and Lou event, as they said. So I think by and large, it was quite effective. This was a Chamber of Commerce and the shopkeepers, they had come together and decided that there would be one night this year when shopping would be encouraged in Rockwood. And it seemed to work out pretty well.
Thank you.
I did not attend, but I only heard wonderful things from people that were downtown. So that's great.
And just to add on to that, I believe it's this weekend. Let me see, I get it right here. This weekend they have a on, I can't remember what day it was, but they have a special day for stocking stuffers. A lot of the businesses will have out special tables just for stocking stuffers. So that should be another little little draw for everyone that needs a last minute gift as well.
And the annual Christmas pageant is coming up on Saturday. So it's a big eventful day in Rockport tomorrow, Saturday.
Any other updates from the board? If not, I'll move on to public comment.
If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand on your video. Okay, Mr. Chair, Toby Arsenian. Toby, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I was interested to hear the report from the YMCA for public service. They mentioned helping with the Rockport Farmers Market. Some people regard that as a charity, some people don't. That's private enterprise in a public space. More appropriate and kinder and more useful would be to organize people to go out and help the Rights of Way Committee with one or another of their projects. And as well, it would be a real kindness if they gathered together and learned some songs, perhaps some old ones that appealed to their parents or grandparents, and went over and sang to the old people trapped in the Denmark. Even if they all croaked like toads, the old people would be delighted to hear them, and it would be a genuine kindness. So you might suggest that to them. I object to what Jason Shaw said about the zoning articles being all garden variety vanilla. This isn't the time to raise particular objections, but I would point out that the watershed protection bylaw that they're proposing is not in order, in that the map that shows the jurisdictional area around the surface reservoirs does not match the text, which includes all of the lots of which even a small portion is crossed by the line around the reservoirs, the blobs on the map that show the 400 feet jurisdictional. So that's a major failing in how it's presented. It's deceptive. I believe that that's not proper or legal. Whether or not it's legal, it's certainly deceptive and unfair. So I would alert you to that before you consider voting to approve such things. One other thing, there was a lot of talk in interviewing the planning board candidates about stormwater. The Government and Bylaw Committee is going to move forward with their bylaw. They plan to have a hearing sometime in January. I don't believe there's a date as yet. There's a great deal of information out there, and there's also a great deal of confusion. The Conservation Commission at one point thought, and still has thoughts, that they might be the people to administer it. The DPW is now off the hook. It's the building inspector that's supposed to enforce it, but the planning board that's supposed to administer it. And it is far from clear whether this will stand on its own feet financially. There are provisions in there that people who have the projects over the 7,500 square feet, that's the trigger. The town can hire experts to vet the project at the applicant's expense. But it's not clear whether additional help will be needed either for the planning board or the building inspector to administer and enforce the bylaw. And since your community leaders and the building inspector answers to you, you need to get a statement out of him unambiguously that he can undertake the enforcement without additional staff, without additional expense. And ditto for the planning board. If there's going to be additional expense to administer that, the public needs to be told up front. There should not be additional expense because the projects envisioned, the 7,500 and up, are not public projects, they're private projects. It's not a public benefit. They need to stand on their own 2 feet financially. Please take notice.
Thank you, Toby.
Okay, Amy Seabrook. Amy, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Amy Seabrook, and I live at 7 Broadway. And I know some of you, but I would like to introduce myself as a person who's interested in the housing crisis that so many of us are interested in. And especially, I'm looking forward to meeting people here and around in the development with the hope that some people in town who have switched from being landlords for long-term tenants to Airbnbs, which is creating some of the crisis that we have. I am interested in some education for I'm interested partly in seeing if some of the people who have done this may be disillusioned, and I am interested in going forward with different potential opportunities to call landlord neighbors back to renting on a year-long basis. And I have a few ideas, and I look forward to meeting people around town about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, Mr. Chair.
All right. I'll entertain, there will be no executive session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes.
So
I'll
second.
second that.
Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lawyer,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
I don't know. I know.